5 years have passed since he killed us. It was one of those really great Saturdays. Everything was going great, and everyone woke up cheerful. I was baking our kids fun-shaped pancakes, which made them quite pleased. As I was cooking, he played with them. Together, we had a delicious breakfast. That afternoon, we went to the park, where we talked while kids played. He declared his happiness and love for me. He was content, and I was too. Our kids were content and in good health. I believed that things could not get any better. After returning home, we placed our order. At the table, we chuckled. Although our youngest daughter thought mushrooms were strange at first, she eventually came to adore them. We played with them and trashed our living room after supper. However, it was a cheerful, constructive mess. We watched TV and put the kids to bed early. I dozed off on the couch. Then, at midnight, I awoke. When I entered our bedroom, he wasn't there. Thinking he had gone outside for a bite to eat, I checked the kids' bedroom before returning to ours. I attempted going to sleep, but I was unable. I contacted him after waiting for an hour. The phone rung normally at first. When I tried to call again, the call went directly to voicemail. That evening, he never returned home. And I found out that morning that a lot of his belongings were missing. No one knew where he was, so I called everyone we knew. It was more than a week before we spoke again. If you can consider a single text message that says, "Don't contact me," to be speech. After all, his sister had threatened to call the police if he didn't talk to her, so he eventually did. She was the one who informed me that he wants a divorce and that he will never return. The law firm he hired got in touch with me a few days later. We separated after a year. Neither he nor his 4 children saw him once. We were joyful, so this caught me off guard. He even acknowledges our happiness. I was devastated, and I would be lying if I said I wasn't still hurt. Then, he wants to talk after a 5-year absence. Says he regrets ruining us and our children and that he misses his own children. He slaughtered us pointlessly. He ruined our kids. Every day, they wept for him. He blocked them when they tried to contact him on social media. He would continue to block them when they called. They observed him leading a life devoid of them, one in which they had no place. Now, though, he longs for his family to return. And misses them. I'll never be able to let him go. He is never given another chance to shatter our hearts. For him, there is no reconciliation or chance at atonement. Edit, his sister, who despises him, or attorneys were our main means of communication after he left. I would sometimes hear about him from his 2 old friends' wives. He would indicate he was happy in the marriage when asked whether he was, but when questioned by all these people, his response was always the same: "I just wanted a new start. I wanted things to be different. I wanted new experiences." He never mentioned anything negative about me. He always said that our marriage was a nice one. Hearing that always breaks my heart because, while I can understand him being unhappy, knowing that he broke our hearts because he desired something different truly breaks my heart. The answer to the question, "Was there another woman?" is that there was. It seems like there were enough. I was unaware that he was cheating until the divorce process, which is when I learned that. So, I had to ask my lawyers to clarify it for me. He zoomed in from his cruise with his then new woman, so he could even be present in the room. He dated a different woman almost every few months. He was seeking younger women, who rarely dated him and, when they did, moved on to someone else after a month. He made an attempt to live well beyond his means. That is essentially how he put himself in financial trouble. Then he became engaged to his former co-worker, whom I did know. Oddly, she was hooking up with him when he was married, so she ended their relationship since he wouldn't stop cheating on her. What she anticipated to be different is beyond me. I am aware that he has had hardships during the last 2 or so years due to losing his job, his automobiles, and his house to foreclosure. I understand that he isn't returning for sincere reasons, but the last time he was truly content was when he was with the kids and myself. Not because he loves us and is sorry, but rather because he wants to be familiar with us. The most popular remarks are as follows: they contacted him on social media, but he blocked them. He would continue to block them when they called. It's true that there are some things that just cannot be overlooked. To deliberately choose to cut you off is, quite literally, one of the most excruciating things a parent can do to you. It demonstrates their lack of concern for your life or death. Screw your children, screw your ex-husband, you deserve child support and a good life. I hope the child support is being paid by him. Considering that he is a rubbish human, not likely. You are quite right, financially, he is a garbage for OP. After making payments for the first half of the contract, he began to default and remained behind on his payments. He eventually ceased making payments completely. I'm owed almost $80,000 in child support by him. He fell into debt quite fast without me because I used to handle all of our financial matters. I have learned through his sister that he owes almost $200,000. He opened a restaurant and bar just before the pandemic struck, and by mid-2020, it had to close, which was the main cause of that debt. Do your kids know? How do they feel? I feel bad for you. I would also never return from this. It takes a lot of audacity to act in this manner. I don't think the children should know yet. I'm not sure how old they are now, but OP ought to provide them with his information and offer them the option to get in touch with him when they become 18. Meanwhile, notice that he's reaching out now so that when the kids get old enough, they will know precisely when dad stopped hanging up on them and blocked them on social media and decided he was worthy of them in his life. He will attempt to portray it as though OP prevented them from communicating, and if they haven't already, he will arrange for the children to have therapy. I strongly disagree, having grown up in a similar position to the children of the poster. While OP shouldn't conceal anything from her kids, she also shouldn't disparage him in front of them. Although our mother never had negative things to say about him, she was always quite honest with us when we had concerns. If my mother had known how awful he was in all he'd done but had chosen to keep it concealed from us, I would have felt so betrayed. When you're finally an adult, it's better to be ready for the kind of person he is than to have it come as a complete surprise. It can be really challenging to comprehend. I am so appreciative that my mother never attempted to withhold anything from us and always provided honest answers to our inquiries. If Mum hadn't told us anything, I can't even begin to imagine how difficult it would have been to eventually say, "Here's your father's information, you can contact him now," as adults, only to hear who knows what from him. In my instance, he told the most heinous lies about how our mother stopped him from being a part of our lives despite his best efforts, until he eventually reached out to me as an adult. Though certainly within limits, I believe the OP should be upfront and answer any questions her kids may have, but I vehemently disagree with withholding information from them until they are of legal age. That can be really harmful, and I totally agree with some of the comments. If she doesn't keep her kids aware, again within reason, it's a great way to alienate them. To therapy, though, yeah. It would be a great idea, in my opinion, to place them in therapy as kids so they can safely digest everything. I don't speak poorly of him at all. I wouldn't need to, even if I wanted to, because my kids, like you, truly had their hearts crushed by him on multiple occasions. Like you, my kids pleaded with me to call him numerous times, and each time Dad would physically block our numbers. And even in the rare instances when he was being courteous, he would yell at me the moment we connected, screaming, "Anything you need to tell me, you tell it to my lawyer." My oldest son had been barred by my ex-husband from using Instagram, so when he got a phone, he contacted him frequently and even made a false account. His dad slammed the door in his face when he and a friend discovered where he was living at the time. My kid never even notified me. It was only via his friend's concern that I learned of his whereabouts. After so much pain, they eventually just stopped trying to contact him. Desiring to dissolve your marriage is one thing, but treating your own family members with such cruelty is quite another. That's what my dad did to us. My brothers were 16, 12, 10, and 8, I was 14. We grew up, got hitched, and had children. Attempt to convey to your children that although they will never meet their grandfather, they do in fact have one. Now that he is alone and in his 70s, my dad wants to see us and get to know his grandchildren. He does not wish to grow old and pass away by himself. All of us told him to shut up. Next, our family welcomed my daughter's bully into the marriage. Please get help in your fight if you or someone you know is dealing with an eating disorder or self-harm. You're not by yourself. The bullying started while my daughter was in her sophomore year. Why Ella and her friends started going after her is beyond me. They said things about her nose, about her physique, about everything. Due to her strict fitness regimen and extended fasts, my daughter experienced eating disorders and started losing weight quickly. But Ella and her friends had no mercy and persisted in bothering my daughter. My kid started acting out, and she was admitted to the hospital once. I managed to convince the school to discipline these females for my daughter's suffering, but it took a lot of effort. Ella's older brother started dating her, which changed my perception of her after my daughter graduated. It devastated my daughter so much that her brother would date someone who would torture her to the point of death when she was finishing up her 3 years of college. She would sometimes cry herself to sleep, wondering why this was happening. As a mother, it wounded me to see this occur. In the end, my son wed Ella. I've let this happen while avoiding Ella. I just spent time with my daughter and daughters-in-law without inviting Ella. 3 other sons of mine, 2 of whom are married. One of my daughter-in-laws thanked me at a recent get-together since I had given her the chance to leave the house when she was stressed about the kids. We kept this a secret from Ella, but I organized a girls' night out with my daughter and my other 2 daughters-in-law. My eldest son eventually told Ella the whole story, and Ella was hurt. I gave in to her question about what she had ever done to deserve to be treated differently from the others. I informed her that I will never consider her a part of this family because of the way she treated my daughter during their high school years. I informed her that she shouldn't push her luck because I had already been gracious enough to let her live close to my family. My son told me later that she had wept herself to sleep that night when she departed with him. Ella never offered my daughter a sincere apology for the harm she had caused. In fact, she makes dark jokes about their past. I'm afraid my son might not get in touch, but because he chose this horrible person over his sister, I won't pursue him. Although she stopped doing it, no efforts were made to offer apologies. What made her brother pick her up? Was he unaware of the anguish she inflicted? Yes, the brother is a POS for ever having hung out with that individual. Her sister's self-worth and self-image were destroyed by her. It's not right. My stalker gained access to my life after my sister got married. Some siblings are genuinely indifferent. It's ill. This makes me think of the sister of my former roommate, who wed the man who had raped her. They are still together now and having 3 children together. When I went to their house with my roommate, I was never at ease and would always act distantly. She uses dark humor when discussing it. Isn't that how the victim manages? Not the one that brought about the trauma. Well done for choose your daughter over this woman. It will sting, but it's best if your son doesn't make contact. He made the decision to wed the person who almost killed your daughter through torture. Consciously, and that's just terrible. It is something I could never forgive if I were his sister. Ella is free to weep herself to sleep if that's what makes her feel worthy, isn't that right? When I read that paragraph, I exclaimed, "You can't be freaking serious," out loud. She couldn't be so naive or unaware of reality that she believes this family has forgotten what she nearly killed one of their members, especially if she believes she can make light of the incident in front of them as well. The crazy thing is that most bullies are that stupid. Most of them don't even remember being horrible because it's too much to handle. Therefore, the brain rewires the memory to make the bully seem good. I'm sorry you felt that way about it, but I don't remember us ever having a problem, is probably what you'll receive if you approach any of your high school bullies. I'm not sure if your son or his wife is worse off in this situation. Deal with it, boo friggin' who that she sobbed herself to sleep. She poses a threat. She's not sorry, therefore she won't apologize either. When you get the chance to apologize as an adult for bad things you did, you take it. If not, it demonstrates a lack of development and maturity. She jokes about it, which still makes her the mean girl. Bad behavior has repercussions, but instead of accepting responsibility, she'll point the finger at you or, more likely, your daughter. Last tale, I'm not sure if I should let my son to re-enter my life, but he wants to. My 41-year-old male family is in a challenging condition. I've been with my ex-wife for a long time. Our life was decent during these years, not great, but good enough that we made the decision to start a family. She had been awful to me for pretty much the whole time, but because I was such a simpleton, I accepted it as the standard and grew accustomed to it. Later on, this will matter. Our 2 children are a male 19-year-old son and a female 21-year-old daughter. As we grew older, 2 distinct camps with quite different interests began to gather at our house. It would include my son and his mother, as well as me and my daughter. Because we had so many same interests, my daughter and I have always gotten along better than he did. The same is true between my son and his mother. He truly was a mama's boy. These camps quickly developed into rivalries that occasionally resulted in heated confrontations and, not seldom, physical altercations with my ex-wife. I repressed my feelings over the years because I knew that if I let them to surface, I would most likely wind up divorcing my wife, and I never wanted my kids to grow up with their parents not together. I endured it for many years, always reasoning that since she never once became physical with the kids, maybe it wouldn't cause trauma to them. Then, however, something occurred that was well beyond national boundaries. My daughter told us about her partner 3 years ago, the year she came out as a lesbian. I decided I had had enough when my kid and my ex-wife responded in such an incredibly angry way to that. Really bigoted remarks, and at one point he even gave her a slap. After moving into our own house with my daughter, I filed for divorce. I had enough money to care for her, and I was certain that no matter what, she should be in a caring atmosphere. Not too long after, my son started spreading the word that my ex-wife had filed for divorce because I had cheated on her. Strangely enough, a lot of people believed him, with the exception of my daughter and a few close friends. I felt duped and offended. As a result of his refusal to communicate with me, I decided to take dramatic measures and disinherit him from my will. Since he didn't want to talk to me anyway, I stopped trying to call and talk to him about this. I assumed he was alright since he was still covered by his mother's bequest. I also broke off communication with my ex-wife by doing this. Surprisingly, my daughter had no trouble with this. She didn't seem to miss her mother and brother as much as I had assumed. I witnessed her happiness with her girlfriend, who paid us multiple visits before disappearing from our lives for 3 years. Let's fast forward to yesterday, when my son called. Somehow he discovered my phone number. He acknowledged that he probably doesn't deserve the opportunity, but asked if he may still stop over and have a conversation. Although I was still upset with him, I made the decision to at least give him an opportunity to defend himself because he is my son. I saw that he had facial bruising when he arrived over. I took him to the couch. His expression was expressionless when he first began to slowly apologize, but then all of a sudden, he started crying and told me that he wanted to be with me. He clarified that she started abusing him also after I left. Frequently, she would beat him and hold him responsible for everything. He said he just wanted to give his sister a hug and apologize for the homophobic remarks he made about her. That was when she wasn't home. He claimed that the reason he did it was because I was the one who broke the family apart. He believed that to be the truth for a long time, but he now realizes that it was false. I informed him that I understood him regarding his mother because I had been in a similar situation, but that I needed more time to consider this and to speak with his sister before taking any further action. He nodded, wiping the tears from his face. I'm unclear now that he handed me his phone number and walked away. Although he is my son, he has deeply wounded and betrayed me. My daughter and I need to have a conversation about this. I'll think about it only if she agrees to let her brother live with us. Here's the advice: I believe he is a victim, or at the very least, his accountability for his acts has been lessened. While he may not be entirely innocent, getting him into therapy and into a secure place, whether that be with you or someone else, might be the best course of action. And after being, I suppose, brainwashed, he picked a side when he was about 16 years old. I was very passionate and quick to take sides in my parents' arguments when I was 16, but looking back, I'm not sure I would have made the same choices. Either way, he's searching for assistance and he needs it badly. It's obvious that he can't stay with her. If he is unable to move in with you, make plans for him to stay with family or, if you are able, rent a room somewhere. Consider it no more than a betrayal. He was manipulated by your wife since he was a young child. I acknowledge that it's extremely difficult and that what he did was terrible, but he is also your ex-wife's victim. It's fantastic that at the age of 19, he has at last realized his mistakes and made restitution. LOL, rather than blaming everything on your wife, how about accepting some accountability? Erase them too, or you ought to have. The majority of people ought not to even be parents. Edit, a lot of people took what I said in the wrong way. You thought I would just let him live with his awful mother. That wasn't the question, therefore no, I don't. I will, of course, assist him in leaving that place. If I allow him to remain with us is the question. Maybe I could forgive him, but I make sure he finds a new place to stay if my daughter tells me she feels uncomfortable around him. He's safe now because he stays with a friend. He started the no contact by not returning my calls and erasing me from his life since he wanted to live with his mother at the time. Since I am aware of what it's like to grow up with divided parents, I genuinely believe that it would be less traumatizing if their parents were together. She also never physically harmed him or my daughter, so I presume she can manage herself towards her children. I know that what I did was incorrect, but I didn't mean to belittle me as a terrible parent for not making amends and prioritizing my daughter's needs straight away. I only wanted what was best for them. Regardless of the result, I do want to support him. Even though he is still my son, I need to discuss with my daughter whether or not I should let him live with me.